Aloha, welcome to the Live Ukulele podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. Thank you for tuning in. This is the last episode of the year, of the season, and I'm going to spend it kind of recapping the year, some reflections on what we got up to in 2022. Of course, this is an October termination of the season, so not going to catch the kind of last quarter here, but it's nice to take a break, get recharged up for next year, and also talk about some of the things that I want to try and work on moving forwards that I would hope to get done next year, and things that you guys can keep an eye out for while, we're moving along with this whole ukulele community learning thing. This episode is brought to you by Ukelogic Strings. I use Ukelogic Strings on most of my ukuleles. Joel has created or has found a nice product. He's got the fishing line hookups in Japan. He's got a nice kind of proprietary fishing line that I don't believe any other string manufacturer uses. And they're wonderful. They have the clarity of fluorocarbon, but they're a little bit meatier if you want a little bit more of a kind of punchy sound. Real nice stuff. Joel always keeps me hooked up with a set of strings. He sends me strings whenever I need them, and really appreciate that. So always like to shout out his nice work. So Ukelogic is available on the ukulele site and also on Etsy. One more thing before we get started is I am now an affiliate of Sweetwater Sound. Sweetwater is the online music retailer I've been buying most of my gear from for the past 10 or more years, probably. And they've always been really great to me, except for shipping prices to Hawaii. They never give free shipping to Hawaii unless the system's broken, it misses a calculation or something. It's always bothered me. But beyond that, there is free shipping for everybody in the continental United States. And if you check the podcast description, I'm going to throw a link in there to the Sweetwater monthly giveaway, which this month is a home studio vocal recording package worth like $8,000 or something. But every month, even if you're listening to this podcast down the road, still check out the link. They give great stuff away every single month, and so it's always worth checking in on them to see what the free stuff is. And if you need to purchase any gear for yourself, not so much ukuleles not so much ukuleles. They do have pretty much anything else you could need. So microphones, mic stands, amps, cables, recording gear, interfaces, you name it, they've probably got it. Please use my link because I get a little bit of a kickback, no extra cost to you, and it helps support the podcast and Live Ukulele. (2022) for me personally was kind of the year of returning gigs, and finally, after a solid helping of COVID and the kind of slump in economy that came with it here in Hawaii and elsewhere, of course, but Hawaii is heavily based on tourism, so when the tourism went away, a lot of the money for gigs kind of went away as well. And then the restaurants, of course, were shut down. They weren't able to make their revenue. And so there were no gigs really to play. But 2022 finally saw a resurgence of people kind of figuring out like, okay, this is what COVID is going to be. We've either dialed in our comfort, whatever we got to do to make ourselves comfortable, or we just go balls to the walls, full send, see what happens, kind of an approach, which seems to be most people, but that's neither here nor there. The gigs are back, and 2022 is when I kind of got to appreciate that and start getting back out in the world and playing. Did a lot of farmers market gigs. Want to give a big shout out to our farmers market manager here in Honoka'a, Ki'ilani. Got us hooked up, so we now have a fee when we play at the farmers market. Really appreciate the extra effort she's put towards trying to make it an appealing place to come play for musicians. That's a big deal, big upgrade. Now Honoka'a Hamakua Harvest Farmers Market is kind of one of the nicer places to play in this area within a half-hour drive, or even a 1-hour drive, probably. It's a sweet spot. If you're ever on Big Island on a Sunday and you can get up to Honoka'a, come check us out. It's a nice little scene. Playing at that farmer's market has also been a nice opportunity to reconnect with my mentor, Kiyoki Kahumoku. He kind of reached out once COVID was feeling a little bit like it was receding and some gigs were coming back. He reached out to me to see if we wanted to start maybe tag teaming some different gigs. And so for the past, most of the year, I've been playing with him at the Hamakua Harvest Farmers Market, but also picking up other little gigs here and there. We've done a couple of weddings and a celebration of life and different things. And we've also got an upright bass player who I've played with over the years in different configurations. Larry Miller also plays slack key guitar, and that's what I played when I was playing with him. He was playing slack key guitar before, but he's also a great upright bass player. And for this band, Kiyoki's already got the guitar sound dialed in, so Larry's jumped on the upright bass. So we have a nice Hawaiian trio. We've been playing around, and that's been a real joy because, Kiyoki has that real authentic Hawaiian approach, and I kind of come from his school and his songs, having hung out with him and his dad. Just a real nice time, and then to have Larry backing us up on the upright, it's a real special sound and a real treat to be able to play with those guys. That's been super nice to get into this year. As far as the podcast goes, this year I started doing Live Ukulele After Hours podcasts. Not a lot, but a few. And these are kind of just fun moments where I'm kind of in a mood and I feel like turning on the mic and just kind of sharing some thoughts and some practice time with you folks and just posting it up, one take, kind of no edits or anything. And yeah, just real raw and kind of detaching it from the actual podcast schedule. So it's just an independent thing. But if you just want to kind of hear me muse on some different stuff and play some songs and talk about what I've been thinking about and what I've been practicing, go have a listen back to some of those. I kind of enjoy them, and I've been told that they are some of the nicest podcasts I've done just because they're really organic and fun. And haven't done a whole lot lately just because I've been kind of busy, but it is a nice thing, and I do plan on continuing those next year or even into the end of this year if I feel like I'm missing the podcast thing. It's just a nice casual way for me to share and, voice some thoughts without needing to commit to editing a full podcast episode, which can be a little bit time consuming. It's something I like doing, but it is a little time consuming. But beyond that, in the first bit of the year, I had a little bit of a hard time finding interview subjects. It was kind of a lot of monologue podcasts, just me talking. But the two interviews we had was two amazing female ukulele artists who both were exceptional interviews. I had a really great time talking to Kelly Hyde, who is up in Kohala and does some really amazing singer-songwriter ukulele work, primarily on a baritone ukulele. That was a really heartwarming episode because Kelly is just lovely to talk to, and we have kind of a nice rapport, having ran into each other and known each other as local musicians for as long as we have. And then Victoria Vox, who jumped on Zoom right after Ukes for Ukraine, and we got to talk story about her new project and some of the things that she's known for. And somebody I haven't really talked to a lot in the past or ever crossed paths with at workshops or anything like that. And this was really the first time I had been able to talk in depth with Victoria, just aside from brief, friendly emails. But it was super lovely, real amazing musician with a real strong grasp on rhythms and teaching concepts and stuff like that. And it was really nice to finally make that connection. And I'm so glad that I was able to share it on a podcast. But yeah, Ukes for Ukraine was a kind of big moment in the year. We put together a large lineup of folks, and we kind of did I think it was 9 till 3 p.m. live stream run on YouTube to raise money for relief efforts in Ukraine. The war had just broken out and was really feeling kind of helpless and wanted to be able to give something back with the ukulele community, and also sort of prime people to start thinking about activism through our community and through the instrument that we have, which has really been, for all of the time it's been popular in its resurgence, it's been a very friendly instrument. It's been a very encouraging instrument, and that's all true. But we've never really gotten to a place where it was used for a whole lot of activism that I have ever seen. And, using the instrument for a cause outside of kind of small here and there operations. It's never been used maybe to make a statement as such. So with Ukes for Ukraine, I feel like hopefully maybe we kind of broke the ice and people were able to see wow, this is a successful venture. Not everybody agrees about everything. And, certainly there's some political stuff that goes along with anything that's on that large of a scale. But, I think it's interesting to think about that the ukulele, it's a vehicle for a message, and it can be a vehicle for change. And that, hopefully in the future, when important things happen, that it won't be as fresh or as weird or as maybe even uncomfortable for folks to see the instrument and the artists and the community come together around, supporting a cause or supporting some piece of activism that is important to, at least a large percentage of the general ukulele playing population. And so Ukes for Ukraine just by itself was quite successful. I think we raised over $11,000 for World Central Kitchen, who I haven't been keeping up on what they've been doing, but at the time they were in Ukraine, and well past the fundraiser, they were in Ukraine providing meals for folks who were displaced or just needed a little bit of nice food in their bellies to help keep their spirits up. And so it was great. We had Kevin Carroll, we had Neil Chin, Victoria Vox. Kyoki came to join me here in the MC studio, we'll call it, because I emceed the event. Craig Chi really helped me with the tech stuff in the background, which was fabulous. Mahalo, Craig. And Craig and Sarah also did a workshop. We also had Tobias Eloff, of course, with his revolutionary iPhone camera holder top-down view that he does. And I also taught a workshop. I'll put a link in the podcast description for where you can watch the live stream, because it's basically 6 hours of workshops and performances by these wonderful artists. It's a fantastic resource, and we covered a lot of interesting topics. Would encourage you to check it out if you want some new material, want some good vibes. And yeah, that was one of the big milestone moments in 2022, and want to mahalo everybody who sat in on the stream and, put their money towards the cause. Super appreciated. And it was great to be able to kind of check it off as a raging success. After Ukes for Ukraine, I got together my left-hand technique for ukulele course and launched that. That was a big endeavor because it ended up being 50 video lessons that I shot and edited and put together. It was 9 hours, ended up being 9 hours of lessons that I taught here in the studio. And really just a learning experience to kind of put together lessons on that scope, going from beginner all the way up to very advanced. And making it sequential and making it all feed into the next lesson and make sure that kind of all the bases were covered. And I was still able to present all of the subjects that I wanted to cover. And so I learned a lot. I think it's a really interesting set of lessons. I think there is a lot of great content to learn from if you're interested in improving at the ukulele and, you're kind of a dedicated student, we'll say. It's not so much for casual people who just want to play a couple songs and strum some chords. It's focused more on like the really improving ukulele player who wants to make strides towards, becoming significantly better. And I think it achieves that with kind of a very different voice compared to the other courses you might find that are out there. This is very much a player's set of lessons. Like, here is the material you need to have at least this interpretation and this understanding of these different things that I use as a player. If you like the way that I play the ukulele, or you've seen some of my YouTube videos and it kind of resonates, what I preach and what I teach and what I play, if that resonates with you, then left hand technique for ukulele is probably the best way to get a better grasp on those things and to really learn it all in one place and in one package. And so I'm really happy with how it turned out. And it's lovely to see, comments coming through and seeing people as they're working on the material, they pop up with questions, and just having that interaction and seeing how people interpret the material, and also how they're using the material, and just hearing how it impacts them is really a very rewarding part of a big project like that. And even though I'm not able to teach personally through these lessons, there's always trade-offs, right? You have an in-person lesson and it's kind of spoon-fed every time, something new, something different. Or with these courses that I create, you have a whole bunch of videos that you can watch at your own pace. It is a specific kind of agenda. We're going to work on this. We're going to learn this. And by the end of it, I want you to be able to do X, Y, Z. I feel like I'm able to provide more of a teaching download for the students to have all that material kind of pre-assembled, how I envision it working out perfectly from end to end, as opposed to having to, I guess, kind of compromise with the students where, like, okay, you want to learn the SpongeBob theme song. That's cool. How can I work what I want to be sharing with you, things that I think that you will benefit from? How do I work that into that? Whereas with these lessons, I'm able to like lay it all out on the table so you can get the eagle eye view of all of this stuff. And then you dive in and start working through it in the way that kind of I envision it. So it's a different dynamic, but I really like the way that it comes across. And I think that the material is really important and it's really useful for certainly the students who are already involved, but just generally useful. And it's useful even if you haven't discovered it yet or you haven't jumped on board. But if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the podcast description, or you can just go to liveukulele.com and check out the store. It's right there up top. Left-hand technique for ukulele. Yeah, that's a big project. And hopefully right-hand technique for ukulele will be coming down the pipes this next year. I'm getting my video set up more and more dialed in, getting the look. I just made a realization the other day that I think I need to reverse my lights so that there's a little bit more illumination on the fretboard. But beyond that, I think it's pretty much ready to rock and roll. And like once the setup is dialed in and I have the tape marking the spots on the floor, I can set it all up pretty much exactly the same way every time. And it's a lot easier to manage creating those videos as opposed to just setting up randomly for one video or setting up randomly for another video. having that setup is going to make it a lot more manageable to create larger swaths of lesson content. After the course came out, I flew over to Maui for the week to go to Uncle George Kahumoku Jr.'s slack key and ukulele workshop, which I've been teaching at for the past 5 or 6 years at least. And it was really lovely. This was the first year. We did a late one last year in September. The workshop's normally in June. We did it in September last year because that was like when the window was for COVID and making it all work. And that one was kind of stiff. It was full masks required everywhere and a little less organic. And then this year in June, we were able to return and it was a little bit more normal. You know, folks who were comfortable we were outside for the huge majority of the workshop spaces. So it was back to normal. We didn't have to shout through masks or anything like that. And it felt pretty good. And it was just lovely to have that kind of connection and return to here we are again and we made it. And it seems like this will be possible in the future. Because I think that was one of the things going through the pandemic was like, we don't know what's going to be on the other side. We don't know if, you know, any of this stuff is going to be feasible at all in the future. And it was nice to return and see that, okay, you know, there were some hiccups, but probably going to be able to do this again. And that was great. We all kind of were riding that wave. I got to connect with Brian Tolentino because he was on the lineup. Haven't really spent a whole lot of time with him before that. So that was super nice. He's an awesome guy, as you'd expect. Super easy to hang out with. Quite a talker. He's like, we did a joint class together, which is one of my favorite parts of the workshop is we teach 2 teachers to a class subject. And the one I did with him, it was like memorizing the fretboard or learning your chord positions or something like that. And he basically talked the whole time. Not because he was stealing the show, but just because he's a talker and I'm not so much a talker. So I don't try and compete with the talking. It's like, if you're feeling it, go for it. I'll just hang here and, you know, help people who need a hand as we work through the content. But that was definitely a highlight. And I hope that he will return in future years. Got to jam with the uncles in the morning, which is always just a lovely treat. You know, so much of the music that we play comes from a tradition and a lineage. And a lot of times, especially nowadays, that's getting a little bit lost kind of in the craziness of the scramble trying to stay afloat, especially here in Hawaii. You know, a lot of times it's really a struggle for local families to make it here just because it's the pricing of everything is very inflated and it's a lot more expensive than it should be because of outside interest and, you know, folks moving here or folks visiting here. It just pushes the prices up and everybody who does live here has to really scramble to compete with that and to keep up. And so I think that has a lot to do with the music tradition being not lost, but less of a priority. If you got to choose, like, you know, hanging out and playing some slack key on the back porch or getting an extra job so I can make sure I'm paying my bills, it's, you know, you kind of got to make that choice. And so because of that, I think some of the opportunities for the family culture of Hawaiian music to kind of propagate and be passed on is a little bit more limited than maybe it was even 10 years ago. So it feels more important than ever to have those personal connections and be able to participate with these guys who have that lineage and they have that tradition and they have that very specific feel for Hawaiian music, to be able to participate in that and experience it and jam with them and learn learn the songs, learn the stories, learn the interpretations. And so for me, that's always one of my priorities while I'm at the workshop is, take advantage of these guys because they are so humble and encouraging and available for us up and comers. And, it's just a treat. And it's kind of just what we do is we hang out and we play music and just share in that way. And that's a real huge treat and a real huge honor for me to be a part of that. And I'm just so grateful that I think it might have been Brian who had to cancel the first year that I taught at Uncle George's. He couldn't make it, so they were scrambling last minute. Like, oh no, we need a new ukulele teacher. Who could we call? And somebody was like, try Brad. And so I was like, of course, I'll be there. No problem. That sounds amazing. And ever since then, I've been invited back. And so just to be able to continue being in the presence of these guys is just kind of what keeps me going and informs what I do and, makes me understand the importance of what I kind of try and do with my own music. Just continue playing the Hawaiian songs and prioritize that because, there's lots of guys who do singer-songwriter stuff, lots of guys who do folk rock stuff. That stuff's not in need, but Hawaiian music is a little bit more in need of it being part of a lifestyle, right? And so I kind of feel like that's my kuleana. Just keep on keeping on, and having that connection with those guys makes me feel like I can understand my place a little bit better. Last couple things of the year, I went out to Washington and did a handful of performances out there, kind of a mini tour thing. Had a house concert stop at Auntie Jean's house out in Bellevue. Got to play with Neil Chin out there, which was super awesome. I had met him in person in passing and then have interviewed him for the podcast, of course. And then he was part of Ukes for Ukraine. So we know of each other. We know we're cool, but it was really nice to just have that little bit of extra time and to be able to play music in person together was really nice. It felt like, despite our styles being very different, our approaches to the ukulele and kind of how we present music on the instrument was very similar. And we were able to kind of find a groove and fit right in like just immediately. And it was really a treat. Some of the best music I feel like I've played in a long time, just kind of having that natural synergy with somebody just right from the get-go. It's not something that you find very often. A lot of times there's kind of a give and take of learning where another musician kind of is in relation to you as you play music. Because you'd think that, the beat is the beat and the melody is the melody, but there's a lot of feel stuff that happens that you kind of have to feel out how this other musician plays. And with Neil, it was very natural, and I understood where he was going to be and all of that just right off the bat. So that was super fun. And he picked me up from where I was at and took me to Bellevue and also drove me home afterwards. And so we got to spend, 3 hours in the car together or whatever it was, just talking story. And maybe it wasn't 3 hours. It felt like 3 hours because city stuff feels so grand and huge. It's like we must have been in the car for 3 hours, but maybe less than that. But just talking about, not ukulele stuff and connecting on a personal level, just kind of as buddies, which was killer. And I super hope that we get to collaborate more in the future. While I was out there, I also got to meet Alika Ka'eka, who is out in Tacoma with the Monday Ukulele Ohana and Northwest Blend or Northwestern Blend. I'm not sure which one it is. But he has Molokai roots, I believe, but he's out in Tacoma now. And his band plays Hawaiian music. We've kind of assembled the Hawaiians from the area to form a band and play some music. And he kind of hosted me at their ukulele group, the Monday Ukulele Ohana, and I taught a workshop out there. That was cool. Got to spend some time with him, hang out with him, spent the night at his place one night, And then we went down to Kalama Festival, which was something I've heard about forever from Uncle Dennis, but being able to see the town and be in the town and go to this Hawaiian and indigenous festival, it was wild, because you roll up and it's like everybody looks like, Hawaiians from back home, but we're like on the border of Oregon. It was wild. And we're next to this big, huge river, which is, not a Hawaii thing. We don't have big rivers. And it was lovely. It was real humble, kind of small, but the people who were there were super dedicated and super enthusiastic, and I totally felt like family. And it was lovely. Thank you, Auntie Gloria, Uncle Bill, for having me come out and play, and just got to hang out with those guys and helped John with the sound. As it's always nice to have kind of backup, and he didn't really have backup for the week, so I was kind of his guy, running around, helping him test mics and set up DIs and do what needed to be done. And yeah, just a lovely time. And then that was sort of the last stop on the tour, and came home and have been sort of catching up after that ever since, trying to get back on track, get on top of the mowing and the weeds and the planting and the music and the podcasts and all that stuff, all while trying to develop some new videos. And finally, I got the new ukulele, which I just covered in the last episode. If you're curious about it, go listen. It's amazing. Long story short, it's lovely. Yeah, just an absolutely fabulous instrument that I'm really looking forward to playing for a long time and recording with for a long time. So that was kind of long-winded, but I wanted to share at the end here a little bit what I want to try and achieve next year with Live Ukulele and the materials that I produce. I always have these big plans, and I end up getting around to a quarter of them, maybe. So this is just like pie in the sky thoughts, but these are things that are on my mind. So if you hear one of them and it's like, oh, that sounds great, it might not happen this year or next year, but it's in my head, and hopefully someday it'll all come down the pipes. And as I get more comfortable creating videos and stuff, hopefully it'll get easier and easier just to kind of blast all this stuff out and puka it into the world as it comes into my head, right? Because there's so much to teach, there's so much to learn. Getting it assembled and cohesive is the main challenge, and then from there, if I can just get it out, that's the goal. So what I'm working on right now, and this is a short-term project, gonna be coming out maybe in a handful of months. Hopefully, I'm hoping I can sit down and just get the lessons done pretty quickly here in the next few weeks once I dial in my lighting, is going to be a set of Hawaiian ukulele songs, notated with a basic lead sheet. So you have your melody and your chords. And then for each song, I'm going to have I'm thinking 3 lessons. So there'll be like a basic version where we walk through how to pick the melody, how to strum the chords, how to sing the song. And that'll be like the beginner version, and then an intermediate version where we work on taking the melody to a place where it's a little bit more like a kind of a chord melody style, but like, very Hawaiian, very kind of improvised. I'll just share like the concept behind creating accompaniment for yourself. I'm not going to try and do a comprehensive thing on like how to play a solo arrangement, because James Hill's The Ukulele Way kind of does that already. And I feel like the time it would take to sit and actually organize my thoughts about that would take forever. It would never get done. And so what I want to approach this with is like Hawaiian style songs, Hawaiian style learning, Hawaiian style approaches. So it might not be as detail oriented as folks might hope, but I think that, it's a little bit like, throw you in the deep end of the pool. You'll learn how to swim. It'll be okay. And in the end, hopefully you'll be able to express better, right? That's one of my big things, is like give you the tools and then you can learn how to express, as opposed to being walled in by overly constructed tablature or, it has to be this way kinds of things. No, I want it to be freeing. I want you to feel like you can improvise on these songs. And then the last video would be like advanced arrangement techniques, advanced ways to express the song, and maybe even look into how you might build an improvisation around the chords and the melody that exists there. And so that'll end up being 15, 16, 17, maybe even 20 videos, because I'm thinking, okay, this is just my brainstorm, but I'm thinking is that I'll have the core videos and the core 5 songs to start. And then in addition, there'll be maybe 5 other lessons about Hawaiian style music, like explaining the Hawaiian vamp, explaining different feel things, different Hawaiian song structure styles, that kind of a thing. And then once you have kind of that starter pack, in the future, if I'm so inclined, I can fairly easily create, the sheet, which is going to be one of the kind of value parts, because it's a beautiful sheet that I've put together that just gives you the most pertinent information. And once you have the concepts down, you can apply them to any song if you just have the basic information that these sheets provide. And so beyond the kind of initial how to play Hawaiian style ukulele set of lessons, I'm thinking about doing like an expansion pack, or, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3 of not as in-depth lessons, because you already have the concepts and the ideas, but making available more songs and more lessons specific to like, oh, here's this interesting chord change. You can do this, this, and this to give more variety and to give more angles on the possibilities of what you can do. But for sure, the first 5, I'm hoping to get out within the next handful of months. Keep an eye out for that. If you're not already, please go join my mailing list. You can find a button on the front page. I believe it's all the way at the bottom of the front page of liveukulele.com to go sign up and get on my mailing list. That is the best way to stay in touch when a new product comes out. Past that, I really want to do right hand technique for ukulele. That's a super big project though, and I felt like doing the Hawaiian songs would be kind of a little bit of a palate cleanse, fresh start, kind of, dial in the video stuff with this new course, make sure that it's all set and ready to go. And then I can start thinking about, bringing right hand technique into the world, which will be the counterpart to the left hand technique course and the video equivalent of the right hand technique for ukulele ebook that's been out for a number of years now. And it'll basically focus on right hand technique. Imagine that. So strumming and rhythm and picking, and probably more like chordal stuff, because the right hand tends to do a lot of strumming, how to move between strumming and picking, and all the styles that revolve around that. Lots of rhythm stuff, lots of maybe not like chord voicings, because that's a little bit more of a left hand thing. And I still am vaguely thinking about doing an ukulele chord shapes set of video lessons to show how to use voicings and maybe play some jazz songs and stuff like that. But with right hand, definitely talk about rhythms, picking exercises, all those kinds of things, so that folks have a real solid toolbox of how to know what the right hand is doing. Because if that's not up to speed, everything you play is going to be out of time. It's going to feel clunky. And so that is something that I feel like the ukulele needs, that set of lessons. The ukulele community is kind of lacking. There are courses that show you how to strum, but it's more like basics and then a bunch of strumming patterns from what I've seen. And I really want to provide just like the foundational meat and potatoes of, what makes the right hand work for just an average player, like myself, like what I employ every day in order to express the music that I play. So, like I said, that's a big project. Best case scenario is hopefully by the end of next year. I would be stoked if I could get that out by the end of next year, maybe even by the middle of next year. That would be awesome. And then, yeah, it all just depends, because as I get more comfortable producing content, it's going to get easier and easier. Outside of actual lessons, though, I'm kind of hitting a turning point with Live Ukulele where I feel like I want to start moving away from single-use materials, shall we say, like song sheets, just to avoid any kind of need for licensing or anything like that. And there's so much of that already available. People who create tabs. When I started playing ukulele, there was like one ukulele tab site and Dominator's site. That was it. And like if you wanted to find an ukulele tab of how to play something, those were the resources you had. So when I created a lot of the tabs that I have on Live Ukulele, they were kind of in need. And now I feel like there's so much content and so many other places to get tabs that it's not maybe the best use of the real estate that I have on the website. And I would kind of like to provide, foundations and concepts and things that really are what make the music that the tabs represent possible, and teach those kinds of things and use my expertise in that way. So probably going to try and steer the site away from songs and tabs, and maybe even phase those out. I'm not sure what my approach is quite yet. But certainly when I do that, I expect that I'm not going to be getting as much search traffic, because a lot of those songs are sort of big time Google result things. And so I expect the banner ad revenue to drop alongside it. So what I want to try and do in this next year, which I've been trying to do for a while now, but it's going to be more serious, I think, is try and make up that income gap with the products and with lessons and things like that, and be able to be a little bit more self-contained. And hopefully, I say this every year, and it just hasn't quite happened yet, but hopefully completely wean myself off of the ads so Live Ukulele can be ad-free and more focused on the goal, which is learning and, getting people into the ecosystem that I provide with my content, as opposed to ads. I don't like that either. So if it's been annoying you, I'm sorry, but it also annoys me, because that's not the best the website could look. The best it could look would just be plain and clean, and it would load even faster. It would be a great thing, except I can't realistically cut off that income stream yet. So be sure to go buy your next amp through my Sweetwater link. Try and close that gap a little bit. So just to wrap things up, I want to acknowledge everybody who has visited the site this year, everybody who has listened to the podcast. The podcast is slowly but steadily growing. It gets a little bit more reach every time, not a lot, but just a little bit. And that constant kind of upwards trend is really heartening. I'm glad that people seem to really resonate with the content of the podcast. There's going to be much, much more of this next year. And really want to mahalo everybody who took the time to reach out this year, just to say hi, just to talk story, and or ask questions about what I provide, what I do, things like that. And it's just really the personal connections that kind of make this all worth it and make it so much more, happy making for me, because otherwise I'm just sitting by myself behind the computer, banging out a video edit or something along those lines, and having the personal connection with somebody who is benefiting from or feeling inspired by what I do. That's really what makes it all worthwhile. So thank you to each and every one of you for making all of this possible, for allowing me to live this lifestyle and share my knowledge and my expertise with all of you all around the world. I am so very grateful and humbled by your support and look forward to what we can do together into this next year. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season, whatever that means to you, and I'll catch you on the other side. Until then, keep on jamming. Aloha.